My name is Julia BAYER, and I'm 28 years old. And just over a year ago, I was diagnosed with epithelial ovarian cancer, stage 3C. For a year, my husband and I were struggling to get pregnant, and we started going to a fertility clinic in Burlington. At one point, at one of my appointments, the nurse was kind of looking concerned as she looked at the screens, and I knew something was off. And next thing you knew, the doctor was saying the word cancer to me. It was after that I got the call. I was sitting in my living room, not expecting to hear from my oncologist that day. He said, you know, it's the worst of the three options. It's not germ cell cancer, it's not a benign tumor, it's ovarian, it's epithelial ovarian cancer. Digesting that news was hard. I called my husband, and he came home from work right away and found me on the couch on my laptop, just crying over the stats of this disease, just trying to piece together, how could I be diagnosed with this? There's no history, there's no reason I can point to as to why this has come out of nowhere. And then looking at the stats and seeing, oh, like this is a tough cancer to overcome, and even if you do, it's very likely to come back in the next 5 years. And I'm only 26, and you know, we were planning on having a family, and what is this gonna look like, and how will we even tell our family and friends? When I told my parents and my sister and my brother and our close friends that it was cancer, my parents came over right away. They just showed up right at our doorstep with few words, but they just sat on our couch and we just cried together. And then my sister came over and we all just kind of sat there with the news and just cried out to God and started this faith journey with God, just asking, you know, why is this happening? But more importantly, help us catch on to your purpose, Lord. Prior to that, I had been married to my husband for 4 years, Andy, and we had traveled the world together. A year into marriage, we went to Europe for 8 weeks and backpacked around. I was also an elementary school teacher, teaching grade 7, and just loved building class community and volunteering as a coach and running clubs at the school. It was a huge part of my life. I poured myself into being a teacher. I grew up in a Christian home with my parents, my brother and sister. I went to a Christian school and really lived quite a blessed life. So the news of cancer was really quite shocking because I don't have any family history, and I was living such a healthy lifestyle as well. Stage 3C ovarian cancer. It was interesting because God gave me this verse before even being diagnosed. Romans 12:12. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. From there, I dove right into chemotherapy for that summer, so last summer, 2015, for 3 rounds of chemo. Yeah, after the first couple weeks, I lost my hair. It was starting to come out clump by clump in the shower, and I knew this was gonna happen. I was prepared for it, so I was trying to just act like it was normal. But then one night, I waltzed into the room and said, Andy, I'm shaving it off today, let's do it. He set up a barber shop in our office, put a huge sheet on the ground, got the razors out that we had prepared, and believe it or not, it was a hilarious night. For the next couple days, I just embraced it. I was like, I'm bald, this is okay, like, God is with me, like, He's giving me strength, and this is just part of the journey. But a couple days after that, I just broke down because every morning, you just woke up to the reality that I had cancer. And every time I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror, it was like, I'm a cancer patient. So the end of August, we were told the chemo had been ineffective, and instead of shrinking tumors, it had actually spread to my chest and spread a lot throughout my abdomen. September 10th, I went in for a major surgery at Princess Margaret Hospital, and it was 12 hours in the operating room of removing tumors, removing all sorts of cancer around the lining of my abdomen. And because of how much there was, they couldn't go ahead and do removal of anything in the chest at that point.
I remember the morning of her big surgery, she was laughing with the nurses right before. As they wheeled her in, she was cracking jokes, and I really believe it's because of her faith in God. I don't know if I could get through it without someone like her, which is funny to say because she's the one going through the journey with cancer, but she constantly encourages me, and that's the reason that I can have hope.
I had no complications after the surgery in terms of any infection. However, my left leg was nerve damaged, so I wasn't able to walk anymore. This was kind of discouraging. Prior to that, I had been running around doing sports across the city, and now they're handing me this massive walker, and 3 people are having to help me take one step while my family cheers me on. I was caught off guard by how challenging recovery would be and how long things would take. And, missing so many organs, they took about 14 things out of my system. I had such a limited digestive system and had to learn what foods I could eat. It was a dark time, and I felt distant from God and just discouraged, deeply discouraged during the next couple months. In December, I was starting to feel better. I was gaining strength. I was starting to use a cane instead of a walker. We also got results that the September surgery had been successful in removing all the visible cancer in my abdomen. I was ready to dive into a January chest surgery the next month. So again, we went to Princess Margaret Hospital. This time it was an 8-hour surgery. One of the complications was, though, that I lost my voice. They damaged some of my vocal cords because of how close the cancer was. So I left the hospital whispering, but at least I was able to walk with a cane. So that was challenging because I love to talk. So in April, we got news that the cancer had returned to my abdomen. I had been writing a blog for that whole year, and so it was also challenging. How do I tell all these people who have been faithfully praying for us? How do we tell our friends and family who've been journeying with us this disappointing news? So I was really journaling on my own and reflecting with God, and all of a sudden I just realized I had this underlying confidence. Hey. Instead of going back to when we were first diagnosed, I didn't know God as well as I knew God now. And so that's why I could take this news with confidence, knowing that although my health is completely up in the air, it's not what we had hoped for. I am even more confident in who God is and the ways He'll walk with us. So just a month ago, I started another oral drug, and this was just such an answer to prayer because we had been praying to God, asking for rest. Just looking over that verse, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy burdened, and I will give you rest." God has been teaching me so much this year. And so as I've done a lot of reflecting through journaling, and then also sharing online through my blog, I've just looked back at this year and said, wow, although this has been the worst year of my life, but at the same time, it's been the best year of my life. And how can you equate those two things that are so opposite, and yet how can they describe the same year? And it's only because of God. There's 4 things I'd like to share. The first one being a raw dialogue with God. Throughout this year, I've learned how to have an authentic relationship with God. The anger I've felt, why is this happening? The disappointment or the discouragement of getting some news that we weren't praying for. Feeling bitterness, sadness, just deep sadness over this, mourning. All of these emotions I've been able to express directly to God. And what's constantly amazed me about God is that He doesn't ignore those, or He doesn't shun those or look down upon those. In fact, He's like, yes, come to me. Tell me how you're feeling. This is relationship. Secondly, I've really embraced vulnerability. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I knew this is going to be a journey that you can choose to share a lot or hold back and be very private about it. And I just knew God had been preparing me to be vulnerable, and what would that look like? Real vulnerability is really with those close people in your life. So my husband, Andy, just tracking with him throughout this whole year, just making sure we're on the same page or understanding how each other is feeling. And then with my family and my really close friends, just unguarded, no fake facades. This is how I'm feeling today, and really being honest about this journey with them. And so where does a blog fit into that? I just felt like God really wanted to use that as a way to give purpose in this journey. And I've just seen how God has just used my story to speak into lives around me. The third thing I've learned would be about suffering. And I would say the hardest times this past year were definitely post-surgery recovery time. Right after that September surgery, I was just, feeling discouraged. I started looking through my Bible, and it just dawned on me in a whole new way that God knows suffering. He's not distant from our human experiences. He doesn't look down and go, oh, that must be hard. Like, Jesus chose suffering on our behalf, and He knows it. And that just deeply resonated with me, because as I was feeling different emotions and also feeling physical pain, I could look to Jesus and know He had felt those same things. And then lastly, going back to my verse that God gave me at the beginning of 2015, which was Romans 12:12, be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. Well, I'm praying and begging God for healing and believe He can miraculously heal. My ultimate hope is not in being cancer-free. My ultimate hope is in Jesus, His death on the cross, His resurrection that's brought me abundant life, and His promises, especially of eternal life. And so now, as I move forward, that's what I'm trying to embrace, the abundant life. I've been wrestling with what does that mean, asking God to show me what is abundant life. It's not just, air in our lungs, having another day, having a long life here on earth. What does that mean? And I think the more I have a greater understanding of who God is and His character, the more I understand what the abundant life is. And that it's not the temporary things of this world, it's the unseen, it's the eternal things. It's our family, friends, it's relationships, the memories that we build. And so that's what I'm embracing now. Looking forward to the future, I am filled with joy, hope, and peace, because I know God will walk with us no matter what's ahead. And I know that His plans for me are good, and that we can trust Him. And I know that now more than I've ever known it in my life.